Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I am here to claim the time tonight on behalf of the Progressive Caucus. The Progressive Caucus. We come to the floor every week to talk about a progressive vision for America, to discuss what America is and could be, to embrace the idea that everyone does better when everyone does better, to embrace the idea that we should look at the world with courage, not with fear, that we believe in dialogue, we believe in discussion, we believe in people doing well, and we believe in radical abundance, not fear of scarcity. A progressive vision, yes, even a liberal vision of an America which is doing well because everybody is working. We're promoting broad-based economic policies that allow for a higher quality of life for all Americans. Yes, the Progressive Caucus comes to the floor every week to talk with the American people and our colleagues about these critical issues. Tonight we have a great topic, but before I even announce it, I just want to say we are very, very happy and pleased to be joined tonight by a dynamic advocate for the cause of human justice, none other than Congresswoman Gwen Moore of the great state of Wisconsin. I yield to the gentlelady. Well, thank you for the gentlelady for yielding. I mean, I quite agree with the gentlelady from Wisconsin who pointed out that the Healthy Families Act, a great piece of legislation, something that is progressive, something that makes sense for America, much like legislation of the past that supported workers' rights. And what this piece of legislation would do for Americans is it would allow Americans to recover from short-term illness. It would allow Americans to care for a sick family member. It would allow Americans to seek routine medical care or to seek assistance related to domestic violence. Now, some people might think, oh my God, that's going to cost us a lot of money. Well, you know what? If people are that sick or in serious dire straits, they're taking the time off anyway. You're not planning for it. It's not in the schedule. And there's no accommodation for what to do about it. If somebody can come in and say, look, straight up, I got to take the day off because I'm sick and I got 7 of these days I can take, then what happens is that you have greater productivity because what? Workers are taking the time off they need to get well. What? Workers are taking their kids to get the immunizations they need. What? Workers are now actually engaging in preventative health care that means that they're not going to have to take extended periods of time off and thereby cut productivity. By expending the money that it would take to provide the 7 sick days that are called for under the Healthy Families Act, business would save money. Business would be better off because we'd have greater productivity, we'd have a healthier workforce over time. But it's what my mother would call, Congresswoman, being penny wise and pound foolish to deny this legislation. But it would be what my mother also would call saying an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of a cure if we were to have a great piece of legislation like the Healthy Families Act. And as you pointed out, as the fear of the mis and inaccurately called swine flu is going around, it should be called the H1N1 virus, not as catchy, but it's more accurate. The fact is that such legislation at this time so that people could get the flu shots they need, could get the checkups that they need in times like this would be a great idea. And as you pointed out in your original 5-minute, it would help moms out a lot, wouldn't it? I yield back to the gentlelady. Well, again, I do thank the gentlelady for nailing this point. It's so important. It's progressive. It's a part of a progressive vision that we would have an important piece of legislation that would really help Americans like the Healthy Families Act. And at a time when we're concerned about illness and sickness, this kind of bill is what would be embraced by a progressive vision. A bill that would say, hey, look, you guys, let's give 7 paid sick days to workers. This is not unusual when you compare it to what workers get in Europe, for example. It actually makes a lot of sense. You'd have healthier workers, more productive workers, and as you pointed out, the gentlelady from Wisconsin, Congresswoman Moore, we would have people who go to the doctor rather than come in while they're sick. Let me just point out a few other important facts. You already hit a number of them already, but according to that University of Chicago study that you referred to, 1 in 6 workers report that they or a family member have been fired, suspended, punished, or threatened with being fired for taking time off because of personal illness or to take care of a sick relative. The lack of paid sick days is a major public health concern. As we try to prevent the spread of the H1N1 virus, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has issued important guidelines that are sound and prudent. If you get sick, stay home. If you get sick, don't go to work or school. Limit contact with other people. But how can you do this, I asked the gentlelady from the great state of Wisconsin, if it's going to cost you economically, if you're already close to the edge economically, if that job that you're on says that maybe you don't have health insurance, you're paid by the hour, and you know that if you don't work, you don't get no money, you don't get paid. What then do you do if you do not have a bill like the Healthy Families Act? I think it's important that we get such legislation. And I yield back to the gentleman. Well, I think what you're saying is so very important. It's part of a progressive vision for America. It's part of the idea that, hey, we all do better when we all do better. You're not a sucker, or you're not a person who's gullible if you believe that it's a good idea to look out for your fellow Americans. You're a person who may be a very savvy business person, because you know that by supporting the Healthy Families Act, it may cost you a little bit to give paid sick leave days for some of your low and medium income workers, but it will allow you to keep that dry cleaners going over the long term. It'll allow you to keep your small business moving, your store, whatever it is that you may be doing, your lawn care business. You'll be able to stay out there because you know you have workers who can take the day off and go get that checkup, who can take the day off and look after that child, so that you have, when they are at work, you have an alert, healthy worker. It makes so much sense. And as we begin this health care debate, I mean, I noticed that one of our colleagues was on doing a 5-minute talking about how he's against a public plan. Well, you know what? I want to tell everybody, and I think it's important to note, that when you talk about a comprehensive health care reform, part of it has got to be giving low-income and medium and moderate workers paid sick days. Let's face it, if you're an executive, if you are at the top of the food chain economically, and you're sick, you can take a day off. But what if you are a line worker? What if you are at the front desk? What if you are a low-wage worker? What if you are a minimum wage worker? That's when you don't see many of the bennies going around, or you could take a day off, but you're not getting paid for it. And in that case, you're forcing a worker into a terrible choice. Lack of income or health? Which do you want to pick today? And that's something that people are too close to the edge to be able to make a decision on. I yield back to the gentlelady.